Ladies and gentlemen, before the rush of the day begins, before emails flood your inbox, before meetings pile up, or even before you sip that first cup of coffee, take a moment to pause and pray. And not just any prayer, but a prayer of surrender. Not my will, but yours, Lord. This simple yet powerful prayer is a declaration of trust. It's an acknowledgement that, as much as you may have plans and ambitions, there is a higher plan at work, a plan designed by the one who created you, loves you, and knows the end from the beginning. When you say, "Not my will, but yours," you invite God to take the lead. And let me tell you, when God leads, He doesn't just guide you to the ordinary. He takes you into the extraordinary. He steers you toward opportunities you could never orchestrate on your own. But let's be honest, surrender isn't easy. Our human nature likes control. We want to know the outcome before we act. But friends, faith is about trusting the one who holds the outcome, even when the path isn't clear. When you pray, "Not my will, but yours," you're choosing to align with God's purpose for your day. You're saying, "Lord, I give you my plans, my dreams, and even my fears. Use me as you see fit." And in that moment of surrender, something amazing happens. You exchange your limitations for God's limitless power. This prayer is also a shield. It guards your heart against pride and self-centeredness. It shifts your focus from what you want to what God desires for you. And let me remind you, His plans are always for your good, even if they take you through unexpected detours. When Jesus prayed these very words in the Garden of Gethsemane, it was a moment of ultimate surrender. It wasn't easy for Him, and it won't always be easy for us. But it's in those moments of surrender that God's purpose is revealed and His glory is displayed. So before you start your day, take a moment, bow your head and say, "Not my will, but yours, Lord." Let that be your compass, your guide, and your source of strength. When you put your day in His hands, you can walk confidently, knowing that the one who holds the universe is also holding you. A prayer of surrender positions you to walk in alignment with God's ultimate plan for your life, ensuring your steps are directed by His wisdom and not your limited understanding. Every person has dreams, ambitions, and goals they strive for. These pursuits are not inherently wrong. They often reflect the talents, desires, and passions God has placed within us. However, without alignment with His purpose, even the most well-intentioned plans can lead to frustration, burnout, or a sense of emptiness. That is why starting your day with a prayer of surrender, acknowledging that His will is greater than your own, is a transformative practice. When we wake up each morning, our minds are often flooded with thoughts about what needs to be done. The responsibilities of work, family, and personal goals can quickly overwhelm us, leaving little room for reflection or connection with God. Yet, in the quiet moments before the day begins, we have an opportunity to recalibrate. Praying, "Not my will, but yours, Lord," is a declaration that we trust God to guide our day. It is an act of humility, recognizing that while we may think we know what's best, our understanding is limited. God, however, sees the bigger picture. Every detail, connection, and outcome that lies ahead. Thus, Santo Sieri Citas, surrendering to God's will doesn't mean neglecting your responsibilities or abandoning your dreams. Instead, it is about inviting Him into every aspect of your life, seeking His guidance in your decisions, and allowing Him to shape your plans according to His purpose. This alignment with divine purpose brings clarity and peace even when challenges arise. It shifts the focus from striving in your own strength to resting in His provision. By aligning with God's plan, you are not just working for temporary success, but for eternal significance. One of the most profound aspects of praying for God's will is the freedom it brings. When you surrender, you release the pressure to control every outcome. You no longer carry the weight of trying to make everything perfect or force situations to go your way. Instead, you trust that God is in control and His plans are always for your good. Jave. This freedom allows you to approach each day with confidence, knowing that even if things don't go as you expected, they are still working together for a purpose greater than you can imagine. Surrender also positions you to hear God's voice more clearly. When your heart is open to His will, you become more attuned to His guidance. You may find that He redirects your path, opens doors you didn't anticipate, or closes doors that were not meant for you. These moments of divine direction often come when you least expect them, but they are a result of your willingness to trust Him over your own understanding. A surrendered heart is like fertile soil, ready to receive the seeds of God's wisdom and purpose. It's important to remember that alignment with God's purpose doesn't guarantee a problem-free day. Challenges, setbacks, and unexpected situations will still come, but when you've surrendered your will to God, you can face them with a different perspective. Instead of seeing obstacles as insurmountable, you view them as opportunities for growth, learning, or even a chance to witness God's power at work. This mindset of trust and surrender transforms how you approach every situation, giving you strength to persevere and faith to keep moving forward. Ultimately, praying for God's will is an act of faith that reflects your belief in His goodness and His plan. It is a reminder that you are not walking through life alone, but are guided by a loving Creator who desires the best for you. By starting your day with this prayer, you open the door for God to work in and through you in ways you may not expect. It is an invitation for Him to take the lead, knowing that His wisdom, power, and love far exceed anything we can comprehend. True power is found in surrendering your will to God's will. It's an act of humility that invites divine strength into your day. In a world that often equates strength with control, independence, and self-reliance, surrender can feel counterintuitive. Society tells us that we must strive, push, and assert our will to achieve success, yet we mustn't. However, God's kingdom operates on a different principle. It is in surrender, not control, that we find true power. This surrender is not a sign of weakness, but a profound acknowledgement that our strength alone is insufficient for the challenges and complexities of life. Surrendering your will to God is an act of humility because it requires admitting that you don't have all the answers. It's a recognition that your perspective is limited and that there are forces beyond your control. This admission can be difficult for many, especially in a culture that prizes self-sufficiency. Yet, humility is the gateway to divine partnership. When you say, Not my will, but yours, Lord. You are inviting the Creator of the universe to take the lead, trusting that His wisdom far surpasses your understanding. This act of surrender positions you to receive God's strength in areas where you feel weak. We all face moments when our own abilities, resources, or understanding fall short. These moments can feel like failure or defeat if we rely solely on ourselves. But when we surrender, we tap into a strength that is not our own. God's power becomes evident in our lives, enabling us to face challenges with courage and grace. The Apostle Paul put it perfectly when he said, "When I am weak, then I am strong." Surrendering to God allows His strength to be made perfect in our weakness. Moreover, surrendering your will to God shifts your focus from striving to abiding. Striving often leads to exhaustion, as we try to control outcomes, manage every detail, and carry burdens that were never meant to be ours. Abiding, on the other hand, is about remaining connected to God and allowing His life-giving presence to flow through you. When you abide in Him, you operate from a place of rest and confidence, knowing that the results are in His hands. This doesn't mean you stop working hard or pursuing excellence, but it means your efforts are empowered by His grace, rather than driven by self-imposed pressure. Another profound aspect of surrender is the peace it brings. When you relinquish your will to God, you let go of the anxiety that comes from trying to control everything. You recognize that God is sovereign and that His plans are for your good. This trust allows you to face uncertainty with calm assurance. Instead of being consumed by worry, you are free to focus on what truly matters: loving God, serving others, and walking in obedience. This peace is not dependent on circumstances. It is a gift that comes from knowing that your life is in God's hands. Surrendering your will to God also opens the door to blessings that you might otherwise miss. When you insist on your own way, you can become blind to the opportunities and blessings God has prepared for you. His plans often exceed what we can imagine, but they require a willingness to let go of our limited vision. By surrendering, you make room for God to do exceedingly, abundantly, above all you can ask or think. This act of trust enables you to experience the fullness of His provision and purpose. Finally, surrender is not a one-time event. It's a daily choice. Each morning presents a new opportunity to lay down your own will and invite God to guide your steps. It's a continual process of aligning your heart with His and allowing His Spirit to lead you. Over time, this practice of surrender transforms your perspective, your priorities, and your life. You begin to see that true power comes not from asserting control, but from letting go and trusting the One who holds everything in His hands. Prayer is like setting a compass. It recalibrates your heart and mind to focus on God's priorities, rather than your own distractions. Each day brings countless demands, decisions, and distractions vying for your attention. From the moment you wake up, your mind is often flooded with thoughts of what needs to be done, where you need to go, and how to manage everything on your plate. Without intentionality, it's easy to get swept up in the noise of life, losing sight of what truly matters. That's why prayer, especially a prayer of surrender, is vital. It realigns your heart with God's purpose and ensures you are walking in His direction, not simply reacting to the chaos around you. Life has a way of pulling us in many directions. Deadlines, responsibilities, and relationships all compete for our focus. While many of these things are important, they can sometimes distract us from the greater purpose God has for our day. Prayer serves as a reset, a moment to pause and remind yourself of what really matters. When you begin your day by praying, "Not my will but yours, Lord," you intentionally set aside your own agenda to seek God's direction. It's like recalibrating a compass that may have drifted off course. Instead of being led by your emotions, circumstances, or to-do lists, you align yourself with God's priorities. This recalibration doesn't just help you stay focused. It also provides clarity in a world full of competing voices. Every day, you are bombarded with information, opinions, and expectations, which can make it difficult to discern what is truly important. Prayer creates space for you to hear God's voice above the noise. It quiets the distractions and helps you see your day from His perspective. In this place of stillness, you can ask, "Lord, what do you want me to focus on today?" And trust that He will guide you. His priorities might not always match your own, but they will always lead to greater peace, purpose, and fulfillment. Prayer also shifts your mindset from self-centeredness to God-centeredness. Without prayer, it's easy to approach your day with a me-first mentality, focusing on what you want to accomplish, how you can benefit, or how others can serve your needs. This mindset can lead to frustration, especially when things don't go as planned. However, when you begin your day with prayer, you invite God to shape your thoughts, attitudes, and actions. Instead of asking, "You," this shift in focus transforms not only your day, but also the way you interact with others and approach challenges. Another profound benefit of recalibrating through prayer is the sense of peace it brings. When your heart and mind are aligned with God's will, you no longer feel the need to control everything. You can let go of the anxiety that comes from trying to manage every detail of your life. Instead, you trust that God is in control and that He will provide what you need. This peace allows you to approach your day with confidence, knowing that even if things don't go as planned, they are still working together for your good. It's a reminder that God's plan is always better than yours, even when you can't see the full picture. Prayer as a daily recalibration also helps you stay resilient in the face of challenges. Life is unpredictable, and unexpected situations can easily throw you off balance. But when you've started your day with prayer, you have a firm foundation to stand on. You are reminded that no matter what comes your way, God is with you, guiding you, and giving you the strength to persevere. This resilience isn't something you muster on your own. It's a result of being anchored in God's presence and promises. Ultimately, prayer is not just about asking God for things or seeking answers to problems. It's about aligning your heart with His and allowing Him to direct your steps. Just as a compass helps a traveler stay on course, prayer ensures that your life is moving in the direction God intends. It's a daily practice that brings clarity, peace, and purpose, enabling you to navigate the complexities of life with confidence and grace. Through prayer, you set the tone for your day, ensuring that you are not led by distractions, but by the steady and unchanging guidance of God's will. Acknowledging "not my will, but yours" invites God to work through you, reminding you that His resources are unlimited and His timing is perfect. Often, we wake up with plans, goals, and ideas for how our day should unfold. We rely on our abilities, schedules, and problem-solving skills to manage our responsibilities. While this preparation is valuable, it is ultimately limited by our human capacity. When we take the time to surrender our plans and seek God's will, we step into a space of divine partnership where our finite resources are replaced by God's infinite power, wisdom, and provision. God's resources are not constrained by the limitations we face in the natural world. He sees possibilities where we see barriers, and He has access to solutions we cannot imagine. When you pray, "Not my will but yours," you are inviting the Creator of the universe to intervene in your life. This act of surrender shifts the burden from your shoulders onto His, allowing Him to use His unlimited resources to accomplish what you could never do on your own. Whether it's wisdom for a difficult decision, strength to persevere through a challenge, or provision for a need, God's resources are always available to those who trust Him. One of the most profound aspects of inviting God to work through you is that it changes your perspective. When you rely solely on yourself, you can become consumed by the immediate pressures and limitations of life. You may feel overwhelmed by the weight of your responsibilities or discouraged by setbacks. But when you surrender to God's will, you begin to see your circumstances through His eyes. Instead of focusing on what you lack, you start to recognize His abundant provision. Instead of being paralyzed by fear or doubt, you trust that He is working all things together for your good. This trust in God's resources also frees you from the pressure to have everything figured out. Many of us spend countless hours trying to plan every detail of our lives, fearing that any misstep could lead to failure. But when you pray, "Not my will, but yours," you acknowledge that God's plan is better than anything you could devise. His wisdom far exceeds our understanding, and His timing is always perfect. Even when things don't happen the way you expect, or within the time frame you desire, you can have confidence that God is orchestrating events according to His purpose. God's timing is a key element of surrendering to His will. As humans, we often want immediate results. We live in a world that values instant gratification, and waiting can feel like a waste of time. However, God's timing is not bound by our impatience. He sees the end from the beginning and knows exactly when to act. When you surrender your plans to Him, you are also surrendering your timeline. This act of trust allows you to rest, knowing that His timing is not only perfect, but also purposeful. Sometimes, His delays are a way of preparing you for something greater, or protecting you from something harmful. When you allow God to work through you, you also become a vessel of His love, grace, and power in the lives of others. Surrendering your will is not just about what God can do for you, but about what He can do through you. He uses surrendered hearts to accomplish His purposes on earth, whether it's encouraging someone in need, offering wisdom in a challenging situation, or being a source of peace in a chaotic world. By inviting God to work through you, you become an instrument of His divine will, touching lives in ways you may never fully understand. Surrendering to God's resources and timing also cultivates a sense of peace and joy. When you rely on your own efforts, the weight of success or failure can be overwhelming. But when you trust in God's unlimited resources and perfect timing, you are freed from that burden. You can move through your day with confidence, knowing that He is in control and that His provision is sufficient for every need. This peace doesn't depend on your circumstances, but on the assurance that God is faithful and His plans are good. Inviting God to work through you is not a passive act. It's a daily commitment to trust Him in every aspect of your life. It means letting go of your own agenda and embracing His, even when you don't fully understand His purpose. It means being open to His leading, trusting in His provision, and waiting on His timing. When you do this, you step into a life of purpose, power, and peace that can only come from surrendering to the One who holds all things in His hands. Surrendering your plans to God doesn't mean losing control. It means gaining divine direction and purpose that surpasses your understanding. In a world that values independence and self-reliance, surrender can often be misunderstood as weakness or passivity. However, surrendering to God is a conscious and powerful choice to align your desires and actions with His perfect will. It's not about abandoning your dreams, but trusting that God's plans are even greater than what you can envision for yourself. This act of trust allows you to step into a life that is guided by divine wisdom and filled with purpose. When you surrender your plans to God, you invite Him to be the leader of your life. It's an acknowledgement that while you may have goals and ambitions, His perspective is infinitely greater. God sees the big picture, the connections, timing, and outcomes that you cannot. By trusting Him, you allow His guidance to shape your decisions and actions in ways that bring out the best in you and align with His greater plan. This divine direction often leads to opportunities and blessings that you may not have considered or even thought possible. Surrender is not about giving up control entirely, but about placing your control in the hands of the One who knows what's best. It's the recognition that your plans, no matter how well thought out, are limited by human understanding. On the other hand, God's plans are rooted in His perfect knowledge and unchanging love. This trust frees you from the stress of trying to make everything work on your own. You no longer have to bear the weight of every decision or outcome because you know that God is guiding your path. Moreover, surrendering to God's direction doesn't remove effort or responsibility, it enhances them. You still take action, work hard, and make decisions, but now you do so with the assurance that your efforts are aligned with His purpose. This alignment brings clarity, focus, and peace, even in the midst of uncertainty. Challenges become opportunities for growth, and setbacks are seen as part of a larger, divine plan. When you trust God with your plans, you walk in confidence, knowing that He is leading you towards something far greater than you could accomplish on your own. Surrendering to God's will brings a sense of peace that frees you from striving, knowing He is in control. In a world driven by constant activity and achievement, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the need to always be in control. The pressure to manage every detail, anticipate every challenge, and ensure every outcome can leave you exhausted and anxious. However, when you surrender your will to God, you exchange the burden of control for the peace of trusting in His sovereignty. This peace is not tied to circumstances, but flows from the assurance that God is working on your behalf. Striving often leads to frustration because it relies on human effort alone. When you depend solely on your abilities, there's a constant tension between what you want to accomplish and the obstacles that stand in your way. Surrender, on the other hand, allows you to let go of that tension. It's a deliberate choice to trust that God's plan is greater than your own, and that His timing is always perfect. Instead of being consumed by the need to force things to happen, you rest in the knowledge that God is orchestrating everything for your good. This peace doesn't mean you stop working or pursuing goals. Rather, it changes how you approach them. When you surrender to God's will, your efforts are no longer driven by fear of failure or the need for control. Instead, they are fueled by faith and obedience. You work diligently, but with a calm assurance that the outcomes are in God's hands. This perspective brings balance to your life, allowing you to focus on what truly matters, without being overwhelmed by what you can't control. Surrendering also shifts your mindset in the face of challenges. Instead of seeing difficulties as insurmountable problems, you view them as opportunities for God to demonstrate His power and faithfulness. You become more resilient, knowing that even in the midst of trials, God's plan is unfolding. This trust enables you to navigate life's uncertainties with confidence, because the weight of the journey is no longer on your shoulders alone. Ultimately, surrendering your will to God brings freedom. Freedom from anxiety, striving, and the need to control every detail. It opens the door to a life of peace, purpose, and trust, anchored in the unshakable truth that God is in control. Surrendering your will to God opens the door to blessings that you might otherwise miss. When you insist on your own way, your limited perspective can prevent you from seeing the opportunities and blessings God has already prepared for you. You might focus solely on what you think you want or need, missing the greater things that God has in store. However, when you choose to surrender your plans to God, you position yourself to receive blessings that far exceed anything you could have imagined or orchestrated on your own. God's blessings often come in unexpected ways. Sometimes what we perceive as setbacks, detours, or unanswered prayers are actually God's way of redirecting us towards something better. Our own desires can cloud our ability to recognize these blessings when they appear. By surrendering to God's will, you make space for Him to work in ways you couldn't anticipate. What might seem like a delay or a closed door can actually be part of His perfect plan, guiding you towards something greater than you initially sought. When you surrender, you also open yourself to growth and transformation. God's blessings aren't always material. They can come in the form of personal growth, increased wisdom, or deeper relationships. When you trust God's plan over your own, you are willing to step into new experiences and challenges that cultivate resilience, patience, and character. These blessings of personal development often come through situations that require surrender and trust. As you allow God to lead you, you begin to see His hand in every area of your life, and you grow more attuned to His voice and His leading. Moreover, surrendering your will allows you to experience the fullness of God's provision. When you hold tightly to your own plans, you may overlook the ways in which God is already providing for your needs. Surrendering opens your eyes to His abundant provision, whether it's through relationships, opportunities, or unexpected resources. You begin to see that God is faithful and that His blessings are not limited to what you can achieve on your own. Surrendering your will allows you to walk in the flow of His provision, trusting that He will provide everything you need. Ultimately, surrendering your will to God doesn't just change the course of your life. It also opens the door to receiving blessings that bring fulfillment, purpose, and peace. These blessings, whether tangible or intangible, are the result of trusting in God's greater plan and aligning yourself with His will. By surrendering, you allow God to bless you in ways you might never have expected, leading you to a life that is richer, more meaningful, and filled with His presence. Surrendering your will to God is not a one-time event, but a daily choice that continually transforms your life. Each new day offers a fresh opportunity to align your heart with God's will, choosing to trust Him in every decision, big or small. The act of surrender is a continual commitment to submit your desires, plans, and actions to God, acknowledging that He is in control and that His wisdom surpasses yours. This daily surrender shapes your character and deepens your relationship with God. The process of surrendering daily is much like maintaining a close relationship with someone you trust. Just as you nurture a relationship with a friend by communicating and being open to their guidance, so too must you cultivate a daily surrender to God. It's about consistently choosing to align your heart with His, even when it feels difficult or counter to your natural inclinations. Over time, this practice builds trust, and it becomes a part of who you are. Instead of relying on your own strength or understanding, you learn to lean on God's wisdom, knowing that He is always present and ready to guide you. Daily surrender also deepens your dependence on God. As you face different challenges and situations throughout the day, you are reminded that you cannot navigate life alone. Each new circumstance is an opportunity to return to God, ask for His guidance, and trust that He will provide what you need. Through this dependence, you experience God's faithfulness in a more intimate way. You begin to see His hand in every aspect of your life, and you grow in your ability to trust Him with both the small and large details of your day. Furthermore, daily surrender allows you to grow in obedience. It's easy to surrender in moments of crisis or when you can clearly see the need for God's help, but it's in the quiet, everyday moments that true surrender is practiced. Choosing to obey God's leading in your daily routines, in how you interact with others, and in how you manage your responsibilities, reflects a heart that is continually surrendered to Him. This obedience doesn't come from a place of obligation, but from a deep love and trust in God's will. Over time, the habit of daily surrender reshapes your mindset and actions. You stop holding tightly to your own will and start living with an open hand, ready to receive whatever God has for you. This ongoing process transforms not only your circumstances, but also your heart, bringing you closer to God and to the purpose He has for your life. Thank you all.